There are people who disappear in just one night and leave behind an emptiness large enough to swallow an entire year of waiting. But even more terrifying than their disappearance is the moment they return with memories stitched back together, piece by fragile piece, memories of the very people they once unintentionally hurt. Truong. After months of treatment that felt endless, finally remembers everything. He remembers Tieunu's tear-rimmed eyes in the stormy night. He remembers little Dewey's hoarse voice calling Dad. He remembers his mother's trembling hands every time another bad piece of news arrived about her son. And today, he comes home. But what leaves everyone speechless isn't the sight of him standing at the gate. It's the moment his eyes meet his mother's, a single glance strong enough to make the woman burst into tears, releasing all the waiting she'd been holding in for so long. Tieu stands frozen in the doorway, her feet glued to the ground. She doesn't dare take a step forward, because she knows that if she moves even once more, her heart will shatter. And Dewey, the child who once sobbed and asked, "Will Dad forget about me?" Will he recognize the man slowly kneeling down, arms outstretched and trembling? Truong's return is the miracle everyone begged the heavens for. But it is also the final test for hearts worn thin after too many storms. And just a few seconds from now, you will witness the moment a once broken family stands before a chance to be mended again for the second time, and perhaps the last time fate grants them. After many weeks of treatment, the shattered fragments of Truong's memory finally began drifting back like an old film being rewound in slow motion. Every night, as the monitor beside his bed beeped steadily, he drifted in and out of consciousness, reaching toward the blurry silhouettes flickering at the edge of his mind. Sometimes he saw Tieu standing by his bed, her eyes wet but calm. Sometimes he heard Dewey calling Dad, only to turn around and find nothing but cold emptiness. And in rare moments of clarity, he heard the soft shuffle of his mother's slippers across the floor, as if she were walking from the kitchen to the living room. An old sound so familiar it made his nose sting. But they all came and went in flashes, disconnected, incomplete, uncertain, unreal. On the 17th night in the hospital, a heavy rainstorm hit. Raindrops hammered against the window, like they were pounding on his memories, unceasing, relentless. Truong jolted awake, cold sweat soaking through the blanket. In that moment, he saw himself back in their old house, the flickering oil lamp casting trembling shadows over Tieu and their child as they huddled together during the storm years ago. He saw himself rushing forward, shielding Tieu with both arms, shouting for her to duck. He saw little Dewey clutching his shirt, trembling. Then a streak of light struck the roof. The world exploded in a violent roar. Truong shot upright, gasping for breath. His head throbbed with searing pain. But despite the pain, that memory was clearer than anything he had recalled in the nights before. From that moment on, the pieces began returning. Slow at first, then stronger, as if someone had opened a hidden door inside his mind. The next morning, the sky had cleared. Soft sunlight slipped through the white curtain and warmed his face. The familiar sterile smell of disinfectant lingered in the air. Footsteps of nurses echoed faintly in the hallway, blending with the rustle of paperwork. Truong opened his eyes. This time, he wasn't floating in that fog of confusion he'd known for weeks. He was awake with a sharp, chilling clarity. He looked at the ceiling, at his hands, then at the chair beside his bed, the one where lytieunu always sat when watching him sleep. Her thin scarf was still there, neatly folded, yet still carrying her warmth. Truong reached out and touched it, and immediately another flood of images surged in. He saw lytieunu standing in the yard, eyes red, asking the doctor, "Will he remember me?" He saw his mother hair streaked with gray, brushing his hair gently while she thought he was asleep. "Hang in there, son. When you come home, we'll cook for Tunu and Dewey again." He saw Dewey sitting at his desk, drawing a family picture, Dad, Mom, and Dai holding hands. Above the drawing, the little boy carefully wrote, "I'm waiting for Dad." The IV tube beside the bed trembled as Truong's hand shook. A tear fell onto the white sheet, hot and heavy, carrying the weight of all his regret. He whispered, barely audible, "I've made them wait too long." The air around him seemed to freeze. For the first time in this long, uncertain journey, Truong knew exactly who he was and exactly where he needed to return. Right then, the door opened softly. His mother walked in first, small-framed but steadfast, her eyes exhausted from so many sleepless nights. A few seconds later, lytieunu followed, clutching a bag of fruit, her face tense with worry, though she tried to hide it. Truong looked at them, and for the first time in many weeks, he truly saw them. "Mom." His voice cracked. His mother froze, then burst into tears. She rushed forward, grasping his hand, gripping it like she was terrified he might disappear again. Tunu stood beside, her eyes wide, lips trembling. She didn't dare step closer, afraid of hoping too much. "Do you remember?" Truong lifted his other hand, touching her cheek gently. "I remember everything." The moment the words left his mouth, lytieunu broke. She threw her arms around him, tears soaking through the thin hospital gown. His mother cried and laughed at the same time, her hand rubbing his back over and over, as if reassuring herself he was real. That tiny hospital room became the place where memory and love returned with overwhelming force. That afternoon, the doctor came to check on him. After reviewing the MRI and his reflex responses, the doctor nodded slowly. "Your condition is stable. A full memory recovery like this is rare." Truong looked at his mother and at lytieunu. "I want to go home." The doctor glanced at the three of them and smiled. "I think that's exactly what you need." When Truong stepped out of the hospital gate, the afternoon sunlight stretched across the road like a carpet, welcoming back a man who had lost his way and finally found it again. Lytieunu walked on his right, his mother on his left, and he held their hands tightly, the hands of the two women who meant everything to him. Truong took a deep breath. The breeze carried something familiar, the scent of home, of family, of a youth once lost, now returned. He smiled, eyes narrowing in the sunlight, but shining brighter than ever. The journey home had finally begun. Leaving the hospital, Truong stood at the gate for a long time. The afternoon sunlight lay over him like a thin sheet of gold, warm enough to soothe, but not warm enough to hide the faint tremors still lingering in his hands. His mother and Lytieunu had offered to walk him home, but he shook his head gently. "I can walk on my own. I want to take this step myself." They understood, and they let him go. The road leading home was still the same one, straight, long, slightly sloped. But to Truong today, it felt longer than any road he had ever walked in his life. The moment he stepped off the hospital pavement and onto the dirt, a breeze swept past carrying the smell of wet earth after rain. Truong froze. That scent hit him square in the chest so sharply his heart ached. It was the scent of home, of childhood, of barefoot afternoons running with friends, of evenings when his mother lit the stove and cooked sour snakehead fish soup. He closed his eyes. Another memory opened. The rustling bamboo by the roadside whispered like a familiar voice. That bamboo grove he used to hide behind it after breaking the bowl his mother loved so dearly. Back then, Lytieunu, just a skinny little neighbor girl, had handed him a guava and said, "Eat it. You won't be scared anymore." And he actually believed her. He ate the whole guava and forgot all about the beating waiting for him. Now, the bamboo was still there, straight, dense, unchanged. Only he had changed, grown older. Endured loss returned from the dimmest stretch of his life. He smiled, though his eyes burned. The dirt road stretched endlessly ahead. The mud still bore the deep tire marks from villagers going to the morning market. Some parts cracked, others carved into gullies by the recent flood. Each time, his shoe sank slightly into a soft patch. It tugged him back a beat, as if testing his resolve. Truong did not stop. He walked slow, but steady, just like the way his memories had returned, piece by piece, fragment by fragment. His right hand held a small gift bag, small but heavy, like it carried all the apologies he had never said. The bottle of medicated oil his mother loved. When he was little, she would rub it on his forehead whenever he had a fever, her hands trembling but warm. After he grew up and stopped coming home often, she still called to ask, "Do you still have the bottle I gave you?" He always laughed it off. But in truth, he hadn't kept one in years. Today he wanted to return it with his own hands. The pair of sandals Lytieunu had asked him to buy before his accident. The day he was about to leave for work far from home, she shoved a few bills into his hand. "I saw a really pretty pair. If you pass the city, buy them for me, okay?" He laughed. Because, good grief, she was over 20 and still loved floral sandals like a little kid. But he never got the chance to buy them. The accident came first, and the girl who once waited for him at the end of the alley had to wait again, this time longer and far more painfully. The toy car Dewey used to love so much. He remembered how on the stormy night years ago, Dewey clutched the car and wouldn't let go, saying Daddy promised to play with me. But the next morning, everything had been swept away, and that promise was buried somewhere in the blank spaces of his memory. Now, he carried all of them, not as repayment, because nothing could ever repay what they had endured. He carried them because it was the only way he knew how to say, "Daddy is home." Truong continued down the familiar road, each step light but firm. The wind rippled across the rice fields, making the leftover stalks sway and rustle like slow applause. Far ahead, a few buffalo grazed lazily. A dog ran out from someone's house, barked once, then stopped as if recognizing him. Truong laughed, the first real laugh he'd had in months, when he reached the small wooden bridge where he once carried Lytieunu across because she was afraid of slipping. He stopped. The wood had aged a few planks, bent from rainwater. But the feeling of the bridge was the same unsteady cold and full of memories. He set the gift bag down, leaned on the railing, and watched the water flow beneath. The surface reflected the soft orange sky of late afternoon. The calm beauty of the scene made him feel small. He took a deep breath. "I'm home, Dad," he whispered, as though speaking to the water, the land, and all that had been lost. A gentle breeze lifted the corner of the gift bag. Truong stooped to pick it up, glanced forward, and for the first time since leaving the hospital, he saw his house appear at the end of the road. The faded tin roof, a thin trail of smoke rising from the kitchen in the back, and in the yard, the silhouette of a woman. Her shirt fluttered softly in the wind. Beside her, Lytieunu was wiping her tears quickly, and Diêp sat on the front step, hugging a small dog, eyes fixed in Truong's direction. In that moment, Truong froze. The world stopped. Fear, regret, longing, love, everything surged at once, making his knees weak. The gift bag trembled in his hand. Without waiting another second, Truong stepped forward. Then he ran. He left behind the long road. He left behind the months of painful emptiness. He left behind the broken pieces of memory. He ran like he was running back into his own life. The journey home had finally reached its end. Truong stood at the front porch of his home, his heart overflowing with feelings both familiar and strangely new. The old tin roof was still faded just like the day he left. The row of beetle nut trees in the yard still stood straight like loyal guards watching over the house. But everything felt smaller, now quieter, soaked in a kind of longing deeper than anything he had ever known. His mother was bent over sweeping the yard. She had no idea her son was standing right in front of her. The bamboo broom tapped lightly against the cement floor in a steady rhythm, blending with the chirping of little birds perched on the gourd trellis. A breeze carried the smell of the kitchen fire from the back of the house along with the faint comforting scent of braised fish, the dish she always cooked whenever someone in the family was unwell. Truong swallowed hard. His hand tightened around the gift bag, trembling over and over. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. The soft cop of his slippers against the cement was barely audible, yet it was enough to slice through the quiet air. His mother froze. She lifted her head, and the moment her eyes met his, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. In the first half second, her eyes widened, filled with shock, not the excited kind that makes someone rush forward, but the kind so deep it stops a person from believing what they're seeing. The next half second, her entire body turned still. The broom slipped from her hand, hitting the ground with a faint clack. A sound so small, yet it cut straight through Truong's heart. Then came the final second, the second where months and months of suppressed emotions burst open at once. His mother moved toward him, not running but taking firm, urgent steps as if afraid that with even the slightest delay, he might disappear again. Good heavens, my Truong. Her voice cracked on the very first word. She wrapped her arms around him. Not the gentle kind of hug she used to give, but a tight, desperate embrace, as though she was pouring every last ounce of strength she had into it. Her hands moved across his back, clutching his shirt, gripping harder each time, trying to make sure he wasn't a dream, wasn't a hallucination, wasn't some shadow conjured by an exhausted mind. Truong froze for a heartbeat, then his whole body softened in her arms. Her shirt still smelled the same. Sunlight, sweat, the scent of years of hard work and worry. A smell he once feared he would never get to breathe again. "Mom," his voice cracked like a child's. "I'm home." He held her tight, burying his face into her shoulder. That small, fragile shoulder had been the place he leaned on as a boy, and now after months of blurred memories and darkness, he leaned on it again, as if returning to the very root of who he was. Tears fell from his eyes onto her shoulder. She cried too, not in sobs, but in trembling, broken little breaths, each one pulled from the deepest part of her chest. Her hands moved over his hair, the back of his neck, his shoulders, as if checking piece by piece to make sure nothing was missing. I thought I'd lost you." Her voice was barely louder than a whisper, yet heavier than anything he had ever heard. Truong held her tighter, murmuring into her hair, "I'm sorry, Mom. I made you worry too much." She pulled back slightly to see his face. Her eyes were red. Her nose flushed, her breath unsteady. She touched his cheek, the face she had prayed for night after night in front of the family altar. "You're so thin, my goodness." Wherever her hand touched, new tears fell. Truong gave a small, choked laugh, pressing his lips together to hold back the swelling ache in his chest. "I'm all right, Mom. Don't worry anymore." "How can I not worry?" Her voice wavered. "To see you lying there, calling your name, and you wouldn't wake up. I was terrified. Terrified." Truong lowered his head, eyes burning. I know, Mom." Then suddenly, Remembering something, he lifted the gift bag and held it out to her. "I brought you something." She opened it and saw the familiar bottle of medicated oil. Her eyes trembled, filled with shock, relief, and hurt all at once. "This is the one you like," I remembered. His voice caught in his throat. She raised a hand to cover her mouth as another line of tears fell. "I thought you had forgotten everything." Truong shook his head, eyes glistening. "No, I didn't forget. My memory just lost its way for a while." A soft breeze swept across the porch. The beetle leaves rustled gently. The smell of braised fish drifted stronger from the kitchen, so familiar it made his stomach twist with emotion. Dewey's little dog ran out from the house, barking twice, then stopped abruptly. It tilted its head as if recognizing him. His mother turned toward the doorway and called out, her voice trembling with joy. Relief and leftover tears knew Dewey. "Come out here and see who's home." Truong stood there, one arm still around his mother, his heart pounding wildly. This moment of being held again, this moment where his memories finally stopped running from him, was when he realized something. The road home had never truly vanished, and from inside the house, he heard hurried footsteps rushing toward the door. The moment his mother's voice echoed across the yard, a small shadow stirred at the kitchen doorway. Lytieunu stepped out, still holding a towel she had been using to dry the pan. Warm steam from the stove clung faintly to her skin. A few loose strands of hair had slipped from her low ponytail. Her cheeks still flushed from standing near the fire. Then she saw him. Her entire body froze, stopped cold, as if someone had pressed pause on her life. The towel slipped from her fingers and fell onto the tiles with a soft thud, a sound so small it barely existed. But to Truong, it tore the silence open like lightning. Her eyes widened round deep, as if trying to swallow the image in front of her whole. Inside them was a flicker of doubt, as though she feared this was just someone who looked like him, or another dream she'd wake from in the middle of the night, still holding their son, still waiting in the darkness. Truong stood still, his feet nailed to the cement. He didn't know whether to step forward or step back, only that his heart was pounding so hard it hurt. He spoke softly, almost to test whether his voice would break, almost afraid. A louder sound would shatter the fragile moment before him new. Her hand rose to her mouth. A quiet sob escaped. Her shoulders trembled. Then she took a small step. One step, another, and another. But when the distance between them closed to just one arm's length, everything she had been trying to hold together collapsed. Lytieunu ran to him. She threw her arms around him, tight, desperate, as if trying to anchor him to reality, terrified he would disappear if she loosened her grip even a little. Her face pressed into his chest, and a broken sob escaped, raw, uncontrollable, unstoppable. Truong, Truong, you really... Her words fractured into pieces, half-breathed, half-sobbed, held together only by tears. Her warm tears soaked through his shirt, each drop burning into his heart like a cut. How many times had she cried when he wasn't there? How many nights had she held their son in fear? How many times had she walked out of the hospital with hope only to leave? With disappointment, Truong closed his eyes, wrapping his arms around her, pulling her close. One hand slid to the back of her neck, stroking gently the way he used to when she leaned against him on tired nights. The other hand rested against her back, feeling every tremor of her frail but resilient body. He lowered his head, his voice low, rough, reaching all the way into her soul. I missed you. I missed you so much. Just 6 simple words, but they struck the exact place she had been hiding her pain all these years. Lytieunu broke completely. She cried harder, no longer holding back, no longer trying to be strong, no longer pretending to be fine in front of his mother, the neighbors, or their son. She was simply herself, the woman who had loved him since youth, the woman who had waited through countless seasons of sun and rain, the woman who had once believed she had lost him forever. She clung to his shirt. I was so scared. So scared. I thought you'd never come back. The words tangled painfully in her throat, part accusation, part heartbreak, and part relief. Truong buried his face in her hair. The familiar scent of kitchen smoke and grapefruit blossoms clinging to her hair made his eyes sting. I'm sorry. I made you wait too long. Lytieunu shook her head against his chest, her small hands gripping the back of his hospital shirt as if someone might come and tear him away. As long as you're alive, as long as you're home, her voice trembled. I don't need anything else. Truong opened his eyes. Over her shoulder, he saw his mother standing nearby, wiping her tears, her lips trembling in a smile too overwhelmed to hold steady. In the corner of the porch, the little dog watched, quietly tail wagging as if it understood. A soft breeze drifted through the yard, lifting the hem of Lytieunu's shirt, brushing her hair. The beetle leaves above rustled gently like a soft, comforting murmur. Truong loosened his embrace just enough to see her face. She lifted her head. Her eyes were swollen, her lashes wet, glistening with tears. She slowly raised a hand to touch his cheek so lightly, as if afraid that if she pressed harder, he would dissolve into smoke. You're real, aren't you? Truong took her hand and pressed it to his chest right over his heart, beating hard and steady. I am real. I'm here, with you. Lytieunu burst into tears again, but this time the crying was different, softer, relieved, overflowing with happiness. She rested her forehead against his chest, whispering in a trembling voice, I missed you every single day. So much that I stopped believing my own hope. Truong placed his chin gently on the top of her head. Closing his eyes, letting the familiarity wash over him, a feeling he once feared he would never find again. From now on, I won't let you wait ever again. The promise echoed through the porch, drifting into the kitchen, into the rooms across the yard like a new vow for a family that had endured too much heartbreak. At the doorway, Dewey stood there holding the little dog, his big round eyes fixed on his mother and father. And in just a few seconds, the boy would run toward his father to embrace the entire world he had been missing for far too long. Just as Tiêunu was still leaning against Truong's chest, her breath unsteady and her body trembling from crying, a soft dragging sound echoed from inside the house, the small shuffling of little slippers on tile. A tiny, hesitant voice followed, as if afraid to believe what it was seeing Mom, who's outside Tiêunu startled gently, releasing Truong. She wiped her tears quickly and turned toward the house. Dewey appeared at the doorway, hair tousled as if he had just woken up, the little dog hugged tightly in his arms. The evening sun cast a warm glow on his face, making his eyes sparkle like two clear drops of water. The moment he saw his parents standing close together, Dewey blinked rapidly. Then he saw the man turn toward him thinner, yes, but the smile was so familiar, it made the boy's small heart clench. He froze. He stepped down from the threshold, but his tiny legs were still shaky. Before he could steady himself, he tripped on a slightly raised tile. Stumbled, Truong gasped and moved instinctively, but Dewey caught himself placing his hands on the ground wobbly, but still standing. He looked up at Truong. This time, his eyes no longer held just surprise. They held recognition, the recognition of a child who has been waiting far too long. His small lips trembled, trying to form the question he'd been holding in his heart. Dad, do you remember me? His voice was high clear, but it cracked at the end. Such a simple question, yet it struck the deepest part of Truong's soul, the part that feared he would never have the chance to answer it. Truong stepped toward him, then knelt down, his knees touching the ground. Both arms opened wide without hesitation, without pause. His voice was low, warm, trembling with held-back emotion. I remember you. I remember you every single day. The moment those words left his lips, it was as if an invisible thread that had been holding Dewey in place snapped. The boy ran straight into his father's arms. Not a second of doubt, no fear, no hesitation. As if his little heart had finally found the place where it belonged. His small arms wrapped around Truong's neck, squeezing so tightly that Truong felt as though the boy wanted to melt into him. Dewey pressed his cheek against his father's shoulder, hot and damp. He was crying, but it was the kind of crying that gets stuck in the throat, silent and aching. Truong wrapped his arms around his son, one hand supporting his back, the other cupping the back of his head, holding him close, as if afraid someone would take the child away. He closed his eyes, lips pressed together, jaw trembling. The scent of his son's hair, warm sunlight milk, and the unmistakable scent of a child hit him so hard it made his chest tighten. "Daddy's here. Daddy's right here." He whispered it again and again, as if soothing not only his son, but the broken pieces of his own memory. Beside them, Lytieunu lifted both hands to her mouth. A tear slipped through her fingers. Then another and another. Her shoulders shook uncontrollably. Not because she was sad, but because happiness hurt this much. She had never thought she would witness this again. Her husband holding their son. Her son holding his father. She had to turn away for a moment to swallow a sob, but she couldn't keep her eyes off them. Afraid the scene would vanish if she looked away even for a second. Behind them, Truong's mother stood with her hands clasped in front of her chest. She said nothing. She only whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. "Heavens above, you've blessed my family." Her eyes were red, but the kind of red born from joy, the deep joy of a mother who once prayed every night for her son's life. The evening breeze swept across the yard, making her blouse flutter softly. The golden sunlight fell over the three figures in the yard, laying a warm, gentle glow on this moment of reunion. Dewey lifted his head, eyes shiny and red, but glowing with joy. "Dad, are you going to live with me now?" The question made Lytieunu turn sharply toward Truong. His mother held her breath. Even the air seemed to freeze. Truong placed a hand on his son's head, rubbing gently. "Yeah, Daddy's home. And Daddy's staying. I'm not going anywhere." Dewey smiled a small smile, but brighter than the last rays of the setting sun. He cupped Truong's face with his tiny hands and whispered, "I waited for you for so long." Truong's throat tightened. He nodded, voice low. "I'm sorry. You won't have to wait anymore." And there, in the middle of the yard, father, mother, and child embraced each other. There were no more words, only the wind, the rustling leaves, and three heartbeats pressed close together. Truong's mother stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're home. That's all I ever wanted." In that moment, in the golden sunlight, in the warmth of his mother, of Lytieunu, of his little boy Truong, felt something many people never grasp in their entire lives. He was stepping into a new chapter, a new life. One with no more confusion, no more wandering. A life where every breath had meaning, because it was tied to the people he loved most. And in the fading light of dusk, that old weathered house was no longer just a place he returned to. It was where he came back to life. And just like that, in the soft golden glow of late afternoon, in the whisper of wind drifting through the beetle nut trees, in the quiet breaths of three people holding each other tightly on the old front porch, Truong's journey home comes to a close. A man who once lost his memory, a mother who lit incense and prayed every single day, a wife who held on to hope even when it was hanging by the thinnest thread, and a child who waited for his father with all the love his small heart could hold. All of them stood together in the yard at sunset, with no grand words, No dramatic gestures. They didn't need any of that. They only needed one thing to have each other. Sometimes, life doesn't require miracles. It only asks for someone to return to, a place where your heart can rest without fear, arms you can fall into after every storm. Watching the father, mother, and child embrace while Truong's mother stood behind them, wiping her tears yet smiling. Anyone could see that all the pain they had gone through wasn't meant to break them, but to teach them how to cherish one another more deeply. And now, before we close this chapter, I want to ask you who are watching, reading, living in the middle of your own busy, complicated world. If it were you, have you ever had a moment of reunion like this? A moment where just seeing the person you love was enough to make you cry. Have you ever lost someone only to realize how much they meant to you? Or maybe you're still waiting for someone to return. Leave a comment below, a sentence you wish you could send to your loved ones, a message for someone who left but whom you still wish peace, or simply your thoughts after watching this story, because somewhere among thousands of comments, someone might find comfort, find themselves, or find the courage to begin a new chapter, just like Truong and little Diêp today. Thank you for staying until the end of this story. And if you'd like me to continue their journey, just let me know in the comments. Whatever you write, I'll read it all, and I'll continue the story whenever you're ready.